So I just finished my first half Ironman down in Indian Wells this last weekend, and I think I needed a week to really think about everything that happened, but I'm just so excited that I finished, and it was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. So I just wanted to share some of my experience and some advice from a first time half Ironman finisher. So, not to get too much into the backstory, but I was a college swimmer, D1 for 4.5 years, and so I felt going into the race my swim was going to be really fun. I had done a few prior triathlons, I had done 2 sprints, and then a full, but that was at Escape from Alcatraz up in San Francisco. So I was sort of expecting the water to be cold. I had worn my suit before, I'd raced in my suit before, and so that was really exciting, just getting into the water. I knew I was gonna have an easy time. I wasn't gonna try to rush anything. I lined up in the 30 to 35 group, and so maybe I should have been a little higher because I was sort of trying to pass people around, but I really wanted just to take it slow, get through the swim part, because I knew for me the bike was going to be the hardest part. But the swim overall, I think before I was just trying to hit 4K a week, 5K even maybe, so that was maybe 2 to 3 masters practices for me, and maybe one on my own. I had practiced going 2K just straight in a club swim, pool, so nothing crazy, nothing outdoors, in just the ocean or a lake. But I thought that really gave me some confidence, even though I probably was lucky enough to not really have to worry about swim. I wanted to make sure I could actually do a 2K before. So the bike to me was probably the most stressful part. I had, prior to the race, only really ridden up to 70 kilometers, so I was sort of scared about that. I also knew I was probably going to hold 15 miles per hour, and I know some of those fast people, they all passed me, but they were going really, really fast. So I'm a novice on the bike still. I've only really biked with my dad, who is sort of a better biker, but I had used his bike for the race, and so I just really wanted to make sure I was able to stay on, basically. I had a few crashes, not crashes, but I had fallen off. I 2 weekends prior had not unclipped my shoes, and so I'd tipped over, and this happened a few times. And so honestly now I'm if I fall, I fall, and it is what it is. I know it hurts, but hopefully I don't get too bruised. I'm not going fast enough to really get bruised. But I think the bike to me was the most stressful part. So I just really wanted to practice inside and outside. So we were able to get a Zwift, hook up an old bike we had just to make it stationary. So during the Thanksgiving break, I was able just to bike for 2 hours without sort of getting stressed being a girl out on the road by herself. And so then I did do a few out on the road. I live in Orange County, so there's a lot of different bike paths along the rivers, and so I was able to do that pretty safe. And I knew my speed was probably going to just be around 15, and I was so happy with that. So I had practiced in that zone, and I practiced for 2 hours, 3 hours. And so for the race, I was actually quite happy with that because I finished in 3.5 hours. And so going 90 kilometers in 3.5 hours for me was a personal best, both in distance and in time. So I was just very happy. And I think the bike course in Indian Wells is just very beginner friendly. There's no one else on the right side of the roads, it's just gravel on the other side, there's palm trees, it's not too hot, it's very pretty, nothing sort of sticking out onto the road. I've really enjoyed that. I think I literally got past, I don't think I passed a single person, so I think 200 people passed me probably, but I think it was just fun. I knew it was sort of going to be a struggle on the bike, but looking forward, I think focusing more on the bike is what I'll probably do the most, just to get more comfortable. I think some of my goals would be to ride a century ride, so 100 either kilometers or miles. We'll start slow and go up from there. I really think that biking is just such a fun sport, and I think it'd be really fun to join different groups, and I've seen some of those on Instagram, so I think there is a big community around here in Orange County especially, but getting ready for the next, hopefully, half Ironman I do, just more experience on the bike. And then for the last part, the run, going into the race was like a little bit more confident on the run than the bike. I am still a beginner runner. After college, I started running. This is a whole nother story. I ran the LA Marathon last year, probably super underprepared, but I have since then really picked up running and really, really enjoyed actually, which is crazy as an ex-swimmer. And so I was really excited for the run because I knew if I got through the bike, I would be okay and like I can get through 13 miles. I really hadn't studied the course. It was a little bit more hilly than I was expecting, but I just had a blast, and you can like see people. There's more people running just around the course because you run through it twice. So put my bike away after in transition 2, put on my shoes. I was like, I used the bathroom. I was like, I'm gonna take my time. I'm not gonna run this, portion because it's like not gonna really make a big difference overall for me at least. So then you go out to the course. You actually run on the golf course, which is a little hilly. I first got on the hill and I was like, okay, like it's gonna be a rough time, and it was starting to get warm and I was like, okay, this is gonna be really rough, and my heart rate just spiked. I couldn't really ever get it back down, but I was like, you're almost there. Like, I know I can run a half marathon in like under 2:30. So I was just like, in 2 hours and 30 minutes, you're gonna be done if you just keep going. Like, you can do this. So I really had a blast actually. I was nervous the first round because you do it twice, and so the first round got some ice, sort of put it in my hat, in my like suit. I was like, I need to just cool my body down to like hopefully get my heart rate down a little bit. There's a lot of students on the course, which after I was able to talk to the students, and they're just volunteering, and how sweet is that? But just to see them on the course and like cheer me on, like I just thought it was so wonderful. And so finish round 1 of the course, head back to almost, you see the finish line, and then you have to go back down. And so I could hear people finish, and I was like, oh, so close, like you can actually do it, like one more lap. So I head back down. You go down a hill to get to the golf course basically, and you just like look up and you see the mountains, and you're like, wow, like it was all worth it. And this was sort of on the bike too. You just like look around on a bike alone, sort of in the middle of the desert. There's mountains on this side and like palm trees on this side, and it's just like such a wonderful experience. Especially for me, I should have trained more. I only trained for a month. We'll get into that. But I think for me, I was like, I put in hard work for this. Like, I think I'm just like so grateful to be able to like have the body to do this. Like, I've trained, like I'm just so lucky, and like to have friends and family come out to see me, I was like, it's just so wonderful, like just taking in the moment basically. But finishing the run, I ran most of the first 10K, and then maybe like 10K to 15, I walked a little bit more just to like get my heart rate down. And going up those hills, I was like, this will be my break. And then once I went around the roundabout, I was like, I just want to run as much as I can for the next like 30 minutes. And then I was taking like little small breaks, maybe like a minute off, so a minute walking, and then maybe like 10 minutes running, just for the last like 45 minutes maybe. But then once you sort of get back to the tennis courts and you see everyone, and everyone's sort of like there already, and then I saw my friends, and I just like ran through the finish. I was just like so happy. I think like it was on par to my LA Marathon, just like how happy I was to finish. And getting into the training a little bit more, I had too many years of swimming, so I sort of felt more comfortable in that. And I still use swimming sort of as a recovery, or just like an easy form of aerobics, just because once I dive in, you have to swim basically. And for me, it's like a good way just to start the morning still. And so swimming has always sort of been like my backbone of my aerobic capacity, whatever. And so since my college career has ended, I've picked up more weightlifting, but I think it's been more low weight max reps. And so for me, that's always worked, but not really relevant to aerobic capacity sports like the Ironman, but besides the point. And then my bike, let's get into this. I think the bike, to me, training for that was the hardest, because sometimes like I just feel a little bit like unsafe with all the cars around, and it's nothing against them, it's just like I feel like going on different riverbed trails or waiting till the weekend have sort of been where I feel the most safe. Or and then I have a Swiss now, and so I don't even know if you say that right, but use that inside while I just watch movies and stuff, and that was like a really great thing. And I know like my wattage isn't super great, but again, I'm just a beginner basically, so no harm, no foul. But I think just building up distance is what I've sort of picked up on is the most important part, just making sure like your muscles can sort of go for that long. And so I think heart rate wise, my heart rate never really goes above like a 120, 110 is where it usually stays actually for a bike, and then run goes up to like 160, and then swim is usually around 140. So that's usually like in those different areas at like my average pace, average speed. And again, I don't really do it for speed, I do it for fun and like just for a challenge. So I think for me those heart rates sound good for now, and like overall it sounds good. So the bike, I had done a few long trails up in LA around the coast, and that was like a very good place. Like if you're in LA or California, I think going on the Strand and El Segundo or even on the riverbeds down in Orange County is a great way to get in those miles. And I think there are different clubs. I think that's something I want to look into more, especially just as I get more comfortable out on the regular road. But until then, I think like training indoors is really fun too. You get all those like different trails, and it's a really fun way to, I think, get in different types of training. And then for the running for this part of the race, I was really focused on just trying to get some like miles basically before I had moved back to Orange County in September. So since then I hadn't really run as much as I did in Boston, which is a whole nother story. I love running in Boston, but running in California, I felt like was just harder for me to get into, so I stuck to swimming most of the time. But I think running, I was trying to hit maybe max of 13 miles before the race. I was hitting consistently like 10k 15k on my long runs, just sort of like build up that confidence. I know I'm not the fastest runner, but I just wanted to like make sure I was able to finish it. I had a stress fracture this time last year in September of last year, and so I wanted to make sure just like my bones and like my overall health was like good for running and biking, especially like coming from a water sport. So my running, I finished for this half Ironman in 2:20ish, and so I had walked some of that just in the race, but I thought overall I was very happy. I just wanted to go under like a 2:30, but I think it was just a big confidence boost for my, hopefully like this LA marathon coming up. So I was very happy with that, happy with my training. I had done probably 2 to 3 runs a week that were maybe like a 10k down to like a 5k just in the morning for 30 minutes or to an hour, and I felt like that was just like a very good consistent way to build up my running without like just focusing on my long runs. And then so one last piece was like I signed up for this in November, and I didn't really pick it up until like 1 to 2 weeks out of the Ironman. So like some of this advice I think is what I will take away from it, sort of like lessons learned. Lesson learned, don't sign up for an Ironman in November and do it in December. Lesson learned. But I think overall it was like such a fun experience. I had, you know, people I was like watching on the different roads, and like I was just blown away. Everyone is so kind. Like I think this is just like such a fun sport. It's so welcoming. You talk to people like while you're running, you're like, oh, I'm dying, and they're like, well, I'm 65 and I've done 10 of these. And I'm like, oh my god, I'll keep going just for, you know, you. Like it's just such a fun experience. And I think my case even is like, you don't even have to be that fast. Like you don't even have to like really be the best out there. It's more of just like testing yourself, having fun, you know, just doing what you can do, right? And so I think overall my experience of this first half Ironman was like beyond amazing. I think the funny part was you know, I jumped in the cold water. I was like, maybe I don't have to do this. But then after I got warm, I was like, I actually am so happy I'm doing this. Like, what a fun challenge. And so I think overall, want to do them again, maybe even a full someday, you know, who knows. But I just am so happy I found this sort of like sport after swim where my whole thing is like, I want to learn how to do this on myself, right? I had a coach for so many years, and like I wouldn't be the person or the swimmer I was without a coach. But I think now, as I sort of enter a new phase of life, finding these new things like on my own, being my own coach, like figuring it out is just like such a fun puzzle. And maybe is like the best part of it, because it's like learning how to sort of ride a bike in a race. Like that's a whole new experience, and no one's sort of gonna be able to tell me how that is except like if I do it, you know? And so overall, I think anyone can like really train for an Ironman. I think, you know, there's so many people who are in this sport who are just so like lovely and kind, and so I've just really enjoyed it. And I think a week after the experience, I actually didn't feel that bad actually too. So, you know, maybe my training did work, but I really enjoyed it. So I think if you're looking at this video for some advice, I say do it. I say maybe take a little bit more time and get into the different things, especially if you don't have like a super strong running or swimming background. Bike, I think you can pick up decently fast. But yeah, I think overall, I feel like this is just a fun new sport that I picked up, a new hobby, and so I'm very lucky and looking forward to more races.